You unlock this benefit with the key of Patreon. Beyond is another dimension. A dimension of thought. A dimension of speculation. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both waffle and substance. Of things and ideas. You've just crossed into the podcast zone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to us talking about the Twilight Zone. Julian and I, and 4 others maybe, are about to jump into the next episode. We are going to be changing our faces and talking about the 4 of us are going to die. And this is an X-Files episode if ever I saw one. This one has a guy with an ability to morph his face into that of others. That when he looks at a picture, he has the ability to morph his face. And he has a plan to use that capability to take money from the mob and to run off with a woman. There's some questions I have around some of this, but basically he's going to take advantage of this skill, but it all backfires on him in a desperate moment at the end. But Julian, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Well, it's an okay episode. I mean, I like the idea. I love the title. I know what you're going to say. I mean, like, this is a planned rape of this woman. It's basically like Revenge of the Nerds. You're impersonating her boyfriend, right?
Yeah. Well, more than that, there was a couple of things I had real problems with. Is this thing of like, basically he's manipulating her and her grief because she believes the person he's impersonating is dead. So he's manipulating to get into bed. More than that, if they did run away, like, is he intending to keep it up with that face like forever? Like, that seems like a real sort of like odd plan. But then more than that, like, he's impersonating someone who's clearly well known, and that seems like just looking for. I mean, that's obviously what happens towards the end, but it just looks like, if you impersonate someone who's well known, you're asking for problems. Because if you're doing this skill, anonymity is your friend.
Right.
But yeah, that was the musician one felt like a bit of a straight away. I was like, step too far on this, but I love the idea. I love the concept.
Yeah, I love the idea too, and it's kind of like an obvious one to have fun with. I mean, I will say, I'm fine with the fact that we never find out how he has these face-changing powers. Right? I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. That's never explained. How in the world did he formulate these plans? Right? Like, we see him looking at newspapers and seeing photos of the deceased, and then he takes on their faces. How does he know that somebody has this girlfriend and where to go? How does he know that the mobster is owed money by this other guy and where to go? I mean, it's kind of a delicious plan to, steal the girl and steal the money and basically like leave town with everything. Mm. Why is he doing? But how does he know any of this? And why is he doing it now? So it's good fun, but the central premise is sort of, why does he have these powers? How does he know any of this? And why is he interested in stealing money and leaving town now? None of this really makes sense, but it's fun.
It's fun. I totally agree. Like, one of the things I was hoping, and again, if you were to do this today, you'd have like one of those, like I call the conspiracy boards. So you'd have a big board with loads of red string on it, like connecting all these things. And like, I've been planning this for like, a year. Like, I know, I've been gathering, I've been using this skill to infiltrate these people's lives, and now I've managed to gain all this information, and this is who I'm. So in order to pull, like, almost like a one-man Ocean's 11, I'm going to pull off this heist or this job, but by myself. And to do it, I need these 4 faces. And so you could get to that point. You haven't got it, but I agree. When he goes to the mobster and stuff, and I'm like, how do you know? I was like, how do you know how to get into this building? Like, how do you know where all the? Because surely, if you do, then like the police should be on this. Like, it seems really obvious. Yeah, I had problems with that. But I was definitely taken up with the 2 things. Actually, I was really taken up with again was they do a really cool trick at the start of this, and it's bog simple, but they've done something wonderful in this. There's a bit where he goes into a hotel and they introduce the character, the guy, and his ability. And to give you a demonstration, he goes in to have a shave. And so you see him looking at a mirror, and you see it over his shoulder, and so he shaves off his cheek and he shaves off a bit of his chin under his nose, sorry, and then you follow the arm down for him to clean off the razor, and then you follow the arm back up, and the face in the mirror is different, and it's obviously done with there's no mirror there. It's clearly just a gap with someone on the other side. But again, the way they've done it and the way it's played is just really good. And it goes down again, it comes back up, and it's the original guy again. I'm just like, oh, look, this is delicious. Like
Yeah.
There's a part of me that's just like, oh, this is just so much fun. Like, yeah, it doesn't make a great deal of sense, but just little bits like that where I'm like, oh, that's good. Like that got me into this quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, this reminded me of an episode that you didn't like as much, Escape Clause, with this sort of deal with the devil, where it's sort of like, okay, it's an absurd premise. Take the premise, kind of run with it. Don't think about it too much. We're just going to put a twist on it or have fun with it. And I mean, another thing that's sort of improbable is, I mean, two things that bothered me that are improbable, not enough to hate the episode or anything. I'm having fun. But one is that nobody seems to notice he's in the exact same clothes. Yeah. So we watch these like escape attempts, and it's like, oh, where's the guy I was chasing? He's literally wearing the same clothes. He's got a distinctive hat on.
Yes.
It's kind of irritating.
Because he's wearing like obviously quite a plain suit, shirt and tie, and so that one I was like, all right, I'd let that slide. But yeah, he wears the hat at like a jaunty angle, and it's a very distinctive hat. Where I was the same. I was like, that didn't work for me. That sort of felt a little bit like the bit when the police come to get him at the end, and he goes through the rotating doors. Like if he was to quickly take his hat off and hide it or something. Or discard it. So when the guy came out, he's got a different face and he's not wearing the hat. I'd be like, okay, I'd buy that. But yeah, he's wearing the hat in exactly the same way, and I'm like, oh, that bit did irk me a little bit. The other thing is as well, and I've had this problem when this sort of thing has been used before. Of people morphing into other people, right? People, what if they're not the same height? Basically, I can't remember. There's a joke in a film I've seen where they do this, and it's like, you appear to have lost a couple of kilos and some inches. You appear to be at least 2 inches shorter than you were before, and there must be that thing of like, you have to be a similar build and height and all this other stuff for it to work.
But how does he know that looking at the newspaper?
No,
right?
He doesn't.
It's like, good news. The mobster who died is played by Danny DeVito.
Yeah. And there's also there's other things of like, how do you know that the photo was their last photo? There could be other things that but I weirdly, like, you're right. There was an episode where I was picking up on these things. I was less interested in, but for some reason I'm quite into this episode, and I think part of it is again because of how they lean into some of this. Because there's a really good scene when he does go after the mob boss, and he's playing this sort of like hitman or the gangster or something, like it was hired for a job, and they clearly killed him off. And he says, like, I was thrown into the river, and I was given, shot in the back 3 times and stuff. And he's given him like this recounting of this guy's death, and he says to him, well, did someone fish you out before you died? And he's like, yeah, let's say that happened. Or I could be a ghost. And like, he's really relishing in sort of like torturing this mob boss. And this mob boss is like, literally, like, I've seen a ghost like this. And it's, again, like, they've made choices in this scene that I just really enjoy. It's a bit hammy, but the way he's laying it on is really quite good fun. I'm enjoying that he's really going for it. And he's like taking the opportunity, but it's like, I'm really going to lay into this guy.
Yeah, and it's clear that the script is going for, those joys as opposed to logic, because it's so effective to talk about, like, and that water was cold. That water was cold, so cold. Like, okay, great. But actually, he doesn't know that. And again, we don't know, so all that stuff you're saying is completely correct. And yet it only underlines for me, how the hell have you planned all of this? How do you know this mobster? How do you know that he was shot 3 times in the stomach? And he does the same trick to the girl where he at first says, I'm from heaven, so he's tormenting her. I have another question is, what is the detective coming by to pick him up for?
I was going to ask that because he gives in really easy, and obviously, but it's clearly he's got like some sort of relationship like with this detective. Like they've clearly crossed paths before. But at no point did they well, you've got this long laundry list of like misdemeanors and felonies and all this other stuff. Like the guy just turns up and he's like, well, I've caught you and I'm taking you in. And you're like,
yeah, clearly there's a backstory where his main personality is feuding with this and pulling off crimes. And he's like, you know what? Maybe I should use my face changing power before I do these crimes. It's unfathomable to me.
That bit I was actually going to ask because I thought I may have missed something, and because I watched it I was like, I don't know if I've missed how this works. But like I said, they're going for the delicious because there's a great scene where the detective sort of says, he agrees to be taken in, and he says, "Can I get my coat?" And he goes into the next room, and it's shot from his back, and he's putting his hat on and stuff. And you are clearly supposed to think he's going to turn around with a different face, like you think that's going to be the surprise, and he turns around and he hasn't. And so they know what expectations they're setting up. And again, I think they know what show they are now making, where people are getting into it and going, oh, it's going to do this. So they're trying to subvert expectations within their own show a little bit already, which I think is quite cool. But the other thing I do like about this is, like I say, is he has to concentrate to do this. He has to be in a sort of a state of calm to do the face changing thing. And so, when he does confront the mobster, and they sort of then two of the gangsters, or whatever, three of the gangsters come into the room, and he gets chased out, and he's like, "I need to find a face. I need to remember." It is a great lesson. I need to remember a face. He can't even return to his own face because he's so panicked. He needs something to focus on. And I was like, I love that there's a weakness, and it's obviously that's going to be his downfall. Mm-hmm. But I did like that was like, he finds that boxer's poster on the wall. So I don't know. That was just a cool moment as well. That he's like, you can't just do this. It's not just on and off and constant. Like it takes something out of him to do it.
Yeah, you're right. And I love the boxer moment. I love, seeing this random image. And then obviously that changes the entire plot. Mm-hmm. That works for me. Having said that, the whole plot with the father, he becomes the boxer. He literally walks out of that alleyway. Oh, and there's that boxer's father running a newsstand, Yeah. And, what a coincidence. I mean, this is so absurd. And then I do like the father's dialogue about, you did wrong by that girl. Clearly there's an implication here. Of sort of like leaving her pregnant or something. Mm-hmm. But, it's like that father could have gone to one of these boxing matches and said this stuff. Why does he happen to be at the end of the alley? And then at the end, the big twist is that the father pulls a gun and guns down his own son, which is utterly absurd to me. And then, the main character is like, who are you talking to? Oh, wait, it's me, which I can forgive, but it's more awkwardness. So, I mean, I don't dislike any of these elements, but there certainly are a lot of elements that maybe irk me more than they do you.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. The bit that the father just happens to be there. Again, I think in my head, I started to fill in like backstory. I was like, this guy's just done a runner, so there was no opportunity to confront this guy. And the poster that he takes the face from is ripped, so it's obviously been torn down. So it's a past match or whatever. But again, like he's done things before, but he could have just walked out and his dad's this old guy, or this old timer's confronting him. He could have just gone, I don't know what you're talking about, mate. I'm not who you think I am. You're clearly mad. Mm-hmm. I might look like your son. I might look a bit like your son, but I'm not your son. Go away. Like you could easily dismiss someone like that and go like, I don't know what you're talking about. But he sort of, it's the fact he tries to engage him. That's the bit that annoyed me was he tried to engage him. He's like, oh yeah. Well, yeah, we've probably crossed paths in the past. I've known you from a long time ago. And then the guy's like, well, you are my son. I am your father. And again, that bit from that point, I was like, oh, like this could have all been avoided. Like he's been dismissive of the people. Like he could have just pushed this guy aside and gone, No, that's it. And then left that face behind, and it becomes an issue. But I like but I do like the concept of when he gets the gun pointed at him and he's panicking that he can't morph into the others. The problem I would say is, again, coming to the dialogue's good, that his dad starts to say. Unfortunately, I think the delivery is dreadful.
Yeah.
It's really stilted, and it's the same when he comes back to confront him on the street. Like, the actor who's playing the old guy is really stilted. He's really struggling with making this emotive. And that's where it doesn't seem to work. Like, if he's coming for revenge or something, like, your mother died of a broken heart kind of thing, then it doesn't feel anything. So, there's that. But again, it's like the end's probably the weakest part. But I've enjoyed this episode quite a lot for some of the concept of it. And the fact, like I said, there's no explanation. It's just sort of like it drops you in. Oh, yeah, this guy can morph his face. Carry on.
Yeah, I think it's a fun episode. It's fun enough. I just, it seems to me, how does he know all of this stuff? How does he, all of that? The coincidence with the father, everybody, not recognizing the hat. I mean, you chase a guy into a dead end, and he turns around and he's wearing the same clothes, but it's not the face that you briefly. I mean, presumably they know that guy. But the main reason they're chasing him is they're the goons that just came in and he rushed past them. So it's not like they got a good look at his face, and it's not like the boss said, "That's my henchman who I killed." Right?
Yeah, that's like that. That's Fingers Malone. Go get him.
Go get him.
Yeah, all he says is like, he's taken the
Get
money.
him, boys.
All he says is a thief. Go get him. That's it. Like,
yeah.
Even at that point, I'd drag him back in and be like, "Boss, is this the guy you saw?"
Right. Exactly.
So
the moral of the story is next time I'm chasing a man down a blind alleyway, if there's one guy at the end and he's wearing the same clothes, I don't care what he looks like, I'm taking him in. That's what I've learned.
Unless he's wearing glasses, in which case he's clearly a different person altogether. The Clark Kent defense is always going to be tops it all. Anyway, I think we both agree it was a good episode. I enjoyed this. It was fun. It's a fun episode, but it's not a classic. So that's the four of us are dying. So anyway, Julian, any last thoughts before we leave out?
No, I'm good. But we should tell viewers that you and I are actually the same person, and it is so hard to record these and then sync up and follow the dialogue.
The editing is incredibly difficult. It takes hours. Anyway, okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.